Was hast du da? Das ist nicht deiner. Verstehst du das? Was? Willst du was? Hast du ein Problem? Ha? Hast du? Geh nach Hause! Hau ab!
At this point, the German army had already been defeated. The soldiers could only watch as a Danish officer beat the German prisoners until they were covered in blood. One prisoner tried to step forward to stop him, but he was also brutally beaten. Before leaving, the officer kicked the two of them several more times. In the end, all of these prisoners would be sent to clear landmines. Most of them were underage boys. Some of them had never even been on a battlefield. The officer then explained the structure of landmines, briefly showed them how to dismantle them, and immediately began practical training. The first soldier carefully placed a landmine on the ground, slowly unscrewed the cap, and gently pulled out the detonator. Just like that, one landmine was successfully dismantled. The others finally relaxed their tightly wound nerves. But suddenly, a loud explosion rang out. The third prisoner had failed to defuse the mine. After that, the prisoners were assigned to different minefields. Each person was given a designated area. Then the officer pointed to the beach ahead. There were a total of 45,000 landmines buried in that beach. He told them that once they cleared all of them, they would be allowed to go home. The officer ordered them to first clear a safe zone, so the boys lay flat on the sand in a straight line, probing the ground with metal rods. Soon, one boy discovered a landmine. He carefully removed the detonating mechanism inside and successfully defused it. The first day of mine clearing went smoothly, filling them with hope of returning home. But without any food supplies, the boys quickly became exhausted. One boy went to the officer to ask for some food, but the officer refused. That night, they secretly slipped out to look for food, ended up getting sick from what they ate, and this led to an accident during mine clearing the next day. The boy was carefully clearing a landmine. Suddenly, he began vomiting uncontrollably. A teammate nearby tried to go over and help him, but the next second,
Wilhelm!
the vomit triggered a landmine. The explosion blew off the boy's hands, and his agonized screams echoed across the entire beach. The Danish officer stood up and went to the boy. He gave him an injection of sedative, and the boy finally stopped screaming. An ambulance was then called, and the boy was taken to the military hospital. Before long, the other boys also began suffering from severe stomach pain. Carl found the officer and confessed his mistake. Because they had not eaten for several days, he had gone to a farm the night before and stolen some horse feed to keep his companions from starving. That was what made the others sick. The Danish officer rushed to the farm to investigate. It turned out the farm woman had mixed rat droppings into the horse feed. It had been prepared specifically for the Germans. After finding out the cause, the officer ordered a bucket of seawater to be brought over. He made the boys drink it to induce vomiting. After they threw up the rat droppings, their bodies were rinsed with cold water, and their lives were finally saved. The next day, the officer asked a nurse about the injured boy, but the nurse told him the boy had not survived. Perhaps out of guilt, the officer secretly took some food from the camp. The boys, who had been hungry for 3 days, immediately began eating when they saw the bread. The officer told them that the injured boy had been sent back to Germany. He said that as long as they worked faster at clearing the mines, they would soon be able to go home and reunite with their families.
Hol den Ball. Hol den Ball! Wie ein Hund! Mit dem Mund!
The boy knelt on the ground and picked up the ball with his mouth. He was as obedient and tame as a dog, holding the ball between his teeth. The officer kept slapping his face, ordering him to kneel and bark like a dog.
Bellen!
Bellen! Wurf, Herr Feldwebel!
Was?
Wurf!
Lauter!
Wurf!
Bellen!
Wurf!
Lauter!
Wurf!
After humiliating the boy, the officer forced the teenagers to act as human mine detectors. Hand in hand, they walked back and forth across the beach, clearing mines, each step carrying the risk of being blown to pieces. That night, the mentally shattered Hell decided to escape, but the others believed that as long as they endured, they could go home. Running now would only mean death. During the struggle, Hell was tied up. At that moment, a nearby farmer came running for help. His daughter had wandered into the minefield and urgently needed rescue. Schumann immediately began clearing mines, but the twin brother walked straight into the minefield himself. After his brother's tragic death, he had gradually lost the will to live. With no fear on his face, he went to the girl and calmly comforted her. After handing the girl over to his companions, he turned and walked deeper into the minefield without looking back. Witnessing the boy's death, even the usually strong Schumann broke down in tears. The officer tried to comfort him, saying everything would pass, and once the remaining mines were cleared, they could go home. But just as the boys were loading the dismantled mines onto a truck, a massive explosion erupted. The teenagers, along with the truck, were blown apart. The remaining 4 boys finally completed the task. Yet the vehicle that was supposed to take them home instead drove them to a new minefield.
Gib mir die Kamera! Wo sind denn eure Befreier, hä?
Wo sind die denn? Idiot! Die haben immer noch das Kommando!
After the German officer walked away, the boy picked up the shattered camera from the ground, and anger ignited in his heart. Just then, a German truck drove by, constantly honking at the boy. Furious, the boy picked up a stone from the ground. As the truck sped toward him, he threw the stone at the driver. The stone smashed through the windshield and struck the driver in the face. The out-of-control truck veered off and slammed into German soldiers walking nearby. Several soldiers were run over on the spot. The scene shocked everyone watching. Seeing this, the German commander immediately ordered the boy's arrest. Realizing the danger, the boy shoved away the approaching soldiers and desperately fled the scene. The pursuing German troops quickly opened fire, with many soldiers chasing after him. Luckily, the boy was only grazed by a bullet and managed to make it back home. However, the next day the Germans came to his house. The officer told the boy's sister that her brother was actually a member of the underground resistance and demanded she reveal his whereabouts. The boy's father worked for the Germans. He went to see the German commander, hoping they would spare his son. The commander said that as long as the boy surrendered peacefully and exposed the locations of other resistance members, he would be released without charges. But the boy chose to turn himself in. Before leaving, he secretly told his sister where the intelligence was hidden. But the German commander did not honor the deal. The Germans tied them to wooden posts and raised their rifles to aim. As the gunshots rang out, the boy fell to the ground. Later, the boy's sister found the photos he had taken in the basement and passed this information on to the resistance. This was the largest airborne operation of World War II. The Allies dropped 35,000 soldiers behind German lines. However, the Germans had already deciphered the Allied plans. In the designated landing zones, German forces launched heavy artillery barrages against the Allies. Dense shelling destroyed countless transport planes. The co-pilot quickly stabilized the aircraft, trying to break through the German blockade. Suddenly, a shell struck the plane. The aircraft began to plunge rapidly. Fortunately, it did not collide with any other planes and crashed straight toward the ground. In the end, the plane went down in the water. Several soldiers managed to survive. They carried the wounded pilot out of the wreckage and moved on with their weapons and ammunition, trying to regroup with their unit. When they passed through a village, the soldiers encountered a Dutchman. He told them that a river lay between them and their destination. The group decided to rest there for the night and head to the rendezvous point the next morning. However, when they woke up the next day, they discovered that 2 rookies had fled with all the supplies. The remaining 2 soldiers rushed out to search for them and unexpectedly captured a German soldier. When they returned, they found the pilot being held by another German soldier. The soldier shouted for the German to drop his weapon, but the nervous German accidentally pulled the trigger. The soldier snapped back to his senses and shot the German dead. After that, the 2 men pushed the rubber raft dropped by the German and headed toward the assembly point. But one of them, weary of the war, decided to stay behind. The remaining soldiers soon joined the main force. This unit was the vanguard of the assault. As the sun rose, the Allies launched their attack. A brutal battle officially began.